right, welcome to the spring season of Ready Row USA podcast as we continue regular broadcasts featuring the best of rowing news, gadgets, and gear from clubs, rowers across the country. Welcome, everyone. Ready Row USA is part of the International Rowing Chat Network. You can subscribe to receive notifications of upcoming shows, send in your news bits, and join our community by visiting the website for Rowing Chat. Your producer and director is Charlotte Pierce. I'm Tara Morgan, today's host and regular contributor. Our other contributor, Mark, is off running a rowing camp in the beautiful country of Croatia. Lucky Mark. Today's topic, order in the club. Tools and strategies for managing rowing. But first, a word from our sponsors. We appreciate our sponsors for making it possible to spread the word about rowing in the U.S. Find all the links and discount codes at rowingchat/sponsors, rowing.chat/sponsors. So we have for us is Just Strong, technical athletic gear designed specifically for women. We have Mind Games, the book on strategies for elite athletes by Annie Vernon. And lastly, but not least, we have Rose and Thorn Active Bras, bringing confidence into the boat. So with us today are two special guests, Yruretagoyena, rower and creator of iCrew club management software and a student of Better Club Management. Welcome, Kevin. And Joe May, manager of the Worcester Boat Club in Worcester, Mass., a revived growing club about 10 years underway. Hi, Kevin. Hi, Joe.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How's it going?
Pretty well. Just got off the water with our session this morning at Mount Baker, so
Nice.
ready to go.
Nice. Joe, were you out on the water this morning?
Did the sun come up today? Of course.
Of course. Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm here on Vashon Island in Washington State. Beautiful morning on the water, except our coach's launches did not turn on today. So we had a bit of a crazy practice. Okay, so speaking of chaos, managing rowers, I think you guys can relate, is sometimes an oxymoron. They're going in a lot of different directions, and club cultures can range from an organized chaos when you use things like magnet name tags and dry erase boards. And then you have this other end of the spectrum with these super highly organized facilities. There's Vashon's on the slide right now. Super organized facilities that use online tools like Google Docs or Facebook groups, or a kind of more of a full service online system like an iCrew or Team Snap, or in the old days I used to use Big Tent or Orange Slices. But no matter what your system is, at the end of a row, the whole point, in my opinion, is, and maybe you can agree, is that the boats, the boathouse, the volunteers, and the rowers and the coaches all need to come back to shore in one piece, right? And everybody needs to be maintaining some sanity. So we've put up some examples of some of the more chaotic ways of doing it. I want to hear from Joe and see what's going on at the Worcester Boat Club.
Well, certainly, I think we have a rather simple approach, simply because our numbers are relatively low. Our overall membership is about 40, and of that, I'd say maybe 20 are really active rowers. So it's the challenge isn't so much into managing them. We use a Google Doc, have always used the Google Doc for sign up on a daily basis. And within that Google Doc, everybody's got each other's contact information. So we encourage everybody to set up the boats in which they'd like to row. We're not formally set up in a competitive way for races. There are a few groups that will do that, and they'll line up their own boats, but others that just want to row. I think I mentioned in my notes that, we have recreational, we have competitive, we have some just for fitness and some for contemplative rowing. Mm-hmm. So the Google Doc really just establishes who's going to be at the boathouse in the morning. And typically we all go out at the same time, either at 5:30 or at 6, because we all have to, unfortunately, go to work. But the Google Doc simply has always been what we've used. And I think it would be disastrous if I tried to change that. So it's been very effective, though.
So what do you think? What do you think works about it? Is it just that you've nailed down a system and you can easily explain it?
Yeah, it's very orderly. They just
Mhm.
simply need to put their name down on the list, and everybody else in the club, it's private access, but they can all see who's signed up to row.
So
And
how
they
do
can,
you, sorry, how do you handle your communications to people? Like, let's say you need to get the word out, like no practice or the boathouse
I'll
flooded.
send out a group text or a call
A
to
text
everybody.
message. Okay.
Sure. Say, hey, we're looking to put together a couple of quads tomorrow. Who's interested?
Okay. Kevin, any thoughts on that?
Well, communications is definitely hugely important for a club, and of course, the larger the club, the more difficult that can be. So, uh, knowing who's going to be at the boathouse any given morning, and a larger club, which I'm in a fairly large club, we get about 60 people Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays, even more on Saturdays. So knowing who's going to be there and having lineups done ahead of time, our coaches set the lineups. We're not a club that we just put lineups together. That's all done by the coach. So the key is we need to know who's going to plan to attend. Also, the boathouse is pretty big, so knowing who's actually arrived at the boathouse is important. So lineups can be finalized and we can get on the water.
So, Joe, in your situation, are you guys sort of self-coached, self-managed, and you're just trying to figure out how not to overlap in boat usage and how to not take the quad that the girls wanted to use or the mixed quad wanted to use? Is it more about that, or are you working in a coached environment where a coach wants to know what they're coaching that day?
No, we're primarily self-coached. It's the
Uh-huh.
former that you mentioned, and it's relatively simplified for us. It only
Mhm.
gets complicated when novices get involved, and they get coaching, obviously.
Do you try to run your Learn to Row programs at the same time as that, say that when that group comes, so you have some management issues there?
We're going to find that out this coming week.
Awesome.
I,
Keep us posted.
I think we're going to do it this year. We've done it in past years, and it's worked out okay. But we've got enough boats in our club to handle the numbers that we have.
So then you said there was a bit of a competitive group. So Kevin and I both have experience with the chaos of organizing regatta registrations. Do you have a lot to do with that in your Google Doc system as well?
Actually, no. The competitors all kind of we give them a chance to register through Regatta Central, but typically it'll fall onto me to make sure that it all happens. Again, the number's not significant enough that it's a burden, so I usually end up doing it. Hopefully that will pass after this year.
Great. So you just got the email about Head of the Charles, and so you're on it, right? Because you're just
Yeah.
right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's about right.
So I just want to go back to one thing that Joe had said. You mentioned some things about sharing your facility with another organization. Do you share? So Mount Baker is another example of a club that shares. Pocock Rowing Center out here in Seattle, they have 3 clubs there. What's going on there?
Well, we strictly have Worcester Boat Club is strictly a masters group, but there is a youth element that also shares in our boats and in our permit. And typically, we try to eliminate the overlap. The adults go in the early morning, and the kids in the summertime can go any time of the day. But our prime time is from 5:30 till 7 o'clock in the morning. So we kind of stay out of each other's way.
Great.
The problem occurs when there's regattas that we want to go to.
Oh, for boat
For
usage?
boats, yes.
Yeah. And oars and all the gadgets.
All of the above, yeah.
Great. So I'm going to ask Kevin a little bit about the next slide, which shows an iCrew discussion group. So we mentioned a little bit about how clubs communicate with each other, get the word out, maybe about everybody needs to register, or everybody needs to sign up for the regatta, or everybody needs to get a birthday card for the coach. Just, could it be anything from critical to minor? So Kevin, do you want to talk about that slide where we have these, this is an iCrew slide, right?
Yeah, these are just some screenshots in different ways you can communicate using iCrew. So you can definitely just send a message from iCrew, which goes out in email, but it does have the option to also text the message to the recipient. There, because we have so many different squads or teams, the dialogue, it makes it easy to send an email to all the competitive masters rowers or to just the junior varsity girls. But also, because people just have different ways to communicate and stay in touch, outside of this, we even have a Facebook group for the masters rowers, and sometimes people will post there. But the main thing is find the method that works well and use that. And another option certainly is an online discussion. So instead of people's emails getting flooded, on the left side of that screen, it shows a discussion thread, and you can mark things important. And people can get online and respond to those discussions and just basically have a chat online. It's not live chat, but it's you get on when you see a topic that you're interested in, and you can post a reply.
Sure. Yep. So there's at that particular boathouse, which, just to put it in context for our listeners and our watchers, I just happen to be familiar with the Mount Baker Rowing Center. I was a coach there for a long time. It's a city parks facility. So unlike Joe's Boathouse, maybe, or CRI in Boston, there's no public, or there's no private boat ownership. So there's no private rowers. There's no management with that. Joe, do you use your Google Docs to also manage rack space and how people store their private boats?
No, actually, we're in the same situation. We are in a Massachusetts state park. So we're not permitted to have any private boats in the boathouse.
Great. So if anybody's out there and they're running a boathouse that's got some rack space and that's part of your management, definitely chime in or let us know what you're working on. So Kevin, let's move on to this attendance planning and tracking screen that we've got. That's, I think, the next slide up.
Yeah. So this is going back to a point I made earlier, knowing who's going to be there, making it easy for people to indicate if they're going to be there or not. Mm-hmm. That's key to us getting on the water. So a good example of where this has really helped is we used to take a good 20 minutes. If we had a 5:30 start time, we wouldn't be on the water, at least not even hands-on, until 10 to 6. And that's because we had to wait to see who came and showed up, and then the coach had to do lineups, and then we rotate our coxswains through our masters rowers. We only have one dedicated coxswain for all the masters, so we all take turns. Yeah. So all of that, just knowing who's going to be there and getting lineups ahead of time is all the goal, is to get on the water faster. So it's really helped there. So it's got to be easy for people to indicate, are they going to be there or not? They can know their lineups as they're walking up to the boathouse, and coaches have a nice way to do the lineups with things like port starboard preference and age category of the boat they might have put together, and even their average weight. That's all just helpful information.
I think what's interesting about that system as well, and you can also do this in Google Docs. I think what's interesting is what Kevin has done with iCrew, you can do with Google Docs. It just makes it more complicated. So for instance, if I have myself as a master's rower, I could have my own tab, on a spreadsheet. So, and that tab would have my name, what side I row, or you have a spreadsheet like a roster style of my name, what side I row, my weight, if that matters, my 2K time, my most recent whatever test, whatever is important to the club. I think where I used to row for a club called Conabear. I think we used the big tent system, which actually disbanded at the end of last year. So we had to go through the process of taking our club management and literally archiving, 10 years of files and 10 years of data and photos, and we had the whole shebang. And I think there's some other clubs that had to do that too. when that one disbanded. So I almost think, people really feel safe in Google Docs. It's not going to go away. I think that's part of the issue as well. I know here on Vashon Island, we don't use anything. We use Google Docs here and there for certain things, but and we also, I want to ask if either of you have worked with the Regatta Central registration system, because Regatta Central also offers this service of having your roster, storing information about your rowers, and then tracking them. So Joe, do you use Regatta Central to manage anything like that?
Honestly found that the Regatta Central system to be very awkward and slow for us to use. It's just not worth the trouble. We don't have the numbers to warrant it anyways, but it wasn't very responsive. We thought what we have in hand is better.
Yeah, so that there is that system out there, and I know that the people at Regatta Central are always excited to talk to you about having your club managed through them. Sometimes Regatta Central works really well because that's where you can pay the money, right? Like you can do your fees. So here at Vashon, we register, like we pay our dues, we pay for regatta fees ahead of time. We register using the Regatta Central system. With iCrew, can you do payments? I don't remember if you can do payments through iCrew.
Yeah, I've got it. There's an interface to PayPal, so you can set up your club in PayPal, and then you can initiate payments from iCrew. It takes you into PayPal, and PayPal does all the hard lifting with the taking of a credit card and whatnot. But yep, you can do that.
Yeah. So I want to talk about, so we just want to make sure we mention what club Kevin is with. You can see he's repping it with his hat. That's the Mount Baker Rowing and Sailing in Seattle, which is, Seattle's kind of like Philadelphia, I think, where we have lots of clubs all in one line of area. So I think one thing I've seen is these people who use Facebook groups. Does any of you use Facebook groups? I know Kevin mentioned Facebook with Mount Baker. Joe, does anybody in your club use a Facebook private page or anything?
We've started one this year, but it hasn't been fully populated yet by members of the group. I'm hoping that does take off, though. But so far, not much impact on us. But
yeah, I've noticed
we don't have the numbers.
Yeah, I think there's also a big stigma around Facebook these days. I think some people are really just abandoning Facebook. They're like, I don't want anything to do with it. There's people who just really, we found that don't put any critical information there, or at least mirror information. Put it on the Facebook page, but also put it on the system that everybody gets. Because if you get into, oh, I didn't hear about the work party because it was just on the Facebook page, you start to get into trouble.
Yeah, we do not rely on the Facebook page. It's more of the folks that are on Facebook, great. They get out there and they share photos and comments, but it's not something it's not mission critical, let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's more social, it's more share photos, it's stuff like that. Yep. So can we talk about when you get a new rower to your club, like someone moves to Massachusetts or moves to Seattle and reaches out to your club and says, hey, I'd love to join your club, or I'm going to pay my dues and join. Do you have something that you send them that's like, here's the how-to?
I'll take that. Certainly the Learn to Row is key for us because our classes are limited. We found that because we don't employ any full-time coaches, I'm like a half a coach, and then we have two other folks who coach the novices on a more regular basis. But we can only run 2 or 3 sessions of novice classes for the year, and that's pretty much it. We can do people on a more informal basis, but it's not nearly as structured. So if they get into the club at this time of year, they'll be getting into some decent lessons and coaching.
So how do
otherwise that it's lost.
Yeah, that's great. How do you, well, good luck with that this summer. How do you communicate to people when they come in? Do you get their email address and then say, okay, here's the deal? Or do you sit them down and kind of go through it? Because I know sometimes you have to sit down with them with a laptop, for instance, and be like, here's how it works, you know?
Well, I usually ask when somebody makes an inquiry to our webpage, the emails come to me, I try to get to them right away and have a phone conversation with them about what they're looking for, and how we might fit into what will match their desire. We talk about the club in general and see if they're interested. Have them come down, and we'll generally start them on Learn to Row Day and just recruit them from there on in.
Sure.
We scull mostly. I'd say 95% of the time we scull.
Yeah.
So we don't have the problem with ports and starboards as much.
So Kevin, I know
that relieves a little bit of an issue. As we get larger, I suspect we'll have to employ some sweep rowing as well, more significantly than we do.
It's a little easier to herd the cats when you've got them all in one boat, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So Kevin, when you get a new rower or you advise your clubs, like isn't Sammamish Rowing one club that you've worked with before?
I've worked with them. They're not on iCrew yet. There's a number of clubs. They all typically have an introduction email that goes out to new rowers that includes a link for them to register in iCrew, and they have really brief instructions on which teams to join as they get into the system. So
what does Sammamish use?
Sammamish is using Google Docs, and
that's a big club.
It's a big club and an extensive set of Google Docs, which one person is responsible for keeping up and running and keeping going.
But they also, Sammamish is also not have private boat usage, right?
They don't have that I'm aware of. Well, you know, they might. I know they do boat reservations, so you can go and do an independent rowing session. If you want to take a single out, you can do that.
So that's another aspect of all of this is, and I think at CRI in Boston, they have this too, where there's boat reservations. I know when I go to the head of the Charles, one gal I work with there handles a giant spreadsheet of boat reservations, and it's a kind of a massive job. So I definitely bring her a bottle of wine when I come.
Yeah,
she's managing 3,000 requests for boats. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to wrap up. I just want to have each of you guys just maybe share what's your outgoing tip for club management, like what's really made it fantastic for your clubs.
You want to go
with
first?
Me? Oh, sure, I'll go first if you like. Communication, steady communication has always been the key with us, and to respond to people quickly whenever they have an issue. Again, it's been easy enough to do because we're relatively small. But even at a larger stage, I'd say to anybody, you must answer people quickly and fully. Don't leave people hanging. They won't leave you hanging either.
Thank you. That's great. Kevin?
Yeah, I'd definitely go back to communication. It's highly critical that communication flows easily and everybody has the information they need, from practice sessions to regattas and what to expect at a regatta, getting LTRs up to speed as they move into the masters rowing. It always seems to come down to communication. So whatever you find that works, that keeps that channel open, that'll be a huge benefit.
Great. Well, we'd love to hear from any other clubs out there, some successes and challenges that you have. I do want to send out our best wishes to the Des Moines Rowing Club and to the Ottawa Rowing Club, currently pretty much underwater with some flooding issues, and also in St. Louis. So just send some good thoughts out to those people. I bet they're having some communication challenges for sure, trying to get help to fundraise and to get their boats cleaned up. So speaking of news and in the news, be sure to send us your rowing news, your events, regattas that you're launching, accomplishments that are pretty cool. I just saw an announcement about a 60-year-old couple that broke the 100K erging tandem record. That's the kind of thing we'd love to know about. No club too small or too remote, and no newbie too fresh. Moving on, we have a gadgets and gear thing, we're trying to put out the word about some cool tricks and hacks and gadgets and websites, gifts as we move into the summer season. Coaches' gifts especially are fun to brainstorm, and send us a photo if you've got something in mind. The show has a hashtag, and we want to make sure that we get a winner this week. We've had 2 winners so far. And we're going to ask Joe if he, up at Worcester, Mass, would provide a prize, like a sculling lesson or a tour of your beautiful location. How about it, Joe? Do you want to offer?
How about all of the above? Sure.
Okay.
And the Worcester Boat Club, a nice, some kind of swag. We'll either give them a shirt or a sweatshirt or whatever. You
Great.
show up, you win that prize, you'll get it all.
Awesome.
Well,
so how you win is you need to post something with our YouTube watch link, which will show up today. Our YouTube watch links is it so that you can watch this later, or you can tell a friend to watch it later. And we need you to post that on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or your social media sites, and use the hashtag RRUSA order. That's how we're going to choose our winner. So whoever posts it, we're going to choose from those folks. So we want to say thanks to everyone who makes the podcast possible, especially Rebecca Caro of Rowing Chat and Nancy Deissner, who provides research, visuals, and makes us all way more comfortable doing this job. We want to thank, we want to plug Mark Wilson, our co-host and collaborator of the All-American Rowing Camp. And he also represents AccuDoc and is a longtime rower and coach. And he is currently taking applications for a rowing tour to Portugal. And we also want to thank Pierce Press, currently accepting proposals for alternative education, including innovative approaches to coaching and learning rowing. And here's some nice artwork from our own Nancy Deissner, who helps us produce the podcast. Remember to say thanks to our sponsors by visiting their sites, Just Strong, Mind Games, and Rose and Thorn. You'll find some discounts and links on our website, Rowing Chat. Next time on Rowing Ready Row USA, we're going to do Catching a Career in Rowing, the Collegiate Report, and Gear Spotlight. So, yes, free row anytime from Worcester Bass Boat Club. Thanks, everybody, for coming down. And I think we're going to wrap it up. Charlotte Pierce, our producer today, says she wants to win your prize at Worcester Boat Club. So she's going to be reaching out and hashtagging RRUSA order. Thanks so much for joining us. We will catch you next week. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Tara. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.